So here's what I think my problem could be. I've got hand cranking it to do a compression test. My front cylinder is low on the compression, in fact, low normal. The rear one was like really high, and a very notable difference. In fact, the rear was double the one at the back. So so there's a thing, people call it a KACR. It's this little unit right here. And this thing has little weights on it that are, they open and close at centrifugal force when this whole cam spins. And you can see this little pin right here. That little pin sits in this little hole on the cam. And this here is the lobe that kicks this valve here. That's the exhaust valve, just this one. There are obviously two exhaust valves. So when this is spinning around, this little nub, when you spin it at low speed, these weights, they go like this at high speed, and at low speed they sit closed. There's a little spring to keep it closed. And what this little doohickey does is it makes starting the engine a lot easier. So if you turn the cam and you look at it on an angle here, you can see that this pin sticks up, right, at idle. So this is closed, and that pin is just sticking up enough that this actually, on this lobe, just bumps this exhaust valve just so slightly, enough to just pop the pressure just as it's building the pressure up. So when you're starting the engine, this sits in a tight state with that bump sitting up, and it bumps the compression out, bumps the valve, lets off the compression, and allows you to turn the engine over a lot easier, so your starter doesn't stress. But what I've discovered is there's a lot of play on this, and this could be because, see, if I push on it, it should stay up. And I can actually push it far enough that it just drops right down into this little hole, which really, given the amount of pressure to bump this valve, that is not bumping shit. So that would explain why it's not releasing the pressure when I'm doing a compression test at low speed, just doing a hand crank. I'm just turning it over like an old school Kickstarter. And then these little things, in fact, I'll show you on another one. Okay, so now this is actually the one off the front, and you can see right here we've still got the pin. There's the pin, and you can see here this and this, these are the counterweights, and they unlock. There's actually one kind of kicks out before the other. I think it's got a little bit more weight to it. So what happens is let me see if I can do this with my hands kind of full. These little weights, you can see if I pull it out like this, they kind of spread, eh? Right? When they spread out, you can see where the pin is there, right? That pin in relation to the hole in the middle, get a good angle here, you can see the pin actually goes down, right? It goes up, down, up, and then, well, perspective to the camera, going left and right, right? So left is closer to the cylinder, to the camshaft, and right is further away. So that spreads out. As soon as the engine starts, this starts to spin at a higher speed. So when it gets up to, a couple 1,000, I think actually it disengages at somewhere around 300 to 600 RPM. So that spreads out, and then this little pin is no longer sticking up, and it no longer releases the pressure. So when I take this one, which is off the front, and I stick it on the shaft, and I press it like I did the one on the rear, the one at the front doesn't go down. It wiggles, but it doesn't go down into the little hole. The one at the back, I press it and it goes right down. It disappears. So obviously this one is not releasing that little pressure. It's not doing that little bump. Question is it my fault because I fucked up on my timing? I don't understand how that could possibly have screwed up the KACR. The valves maybe, but then my lucky thing is that the lobes on the cam, when they were flipped over, it's not opening the valves. So I think I actually got super fucking lucky, and it didn't destroy the valves. It didn't bend them, because I got no leakage. I got no issues at all. It's only compression as I'm kicking it over, and it's only at low speed. So I think it's just the KACR. And unfortunately, these little buggers, they're known to be troublesome. I've done some checking on the internet, and a lot of people complain about these things because they're not really serviceable. If anything goes wrong, your best bet is just to replace the damn thing. These are like $200 a piece. I think it was over 200. I think it was like $250. plus tax, and then your restocking fee at Snow City is what is it? Restocking fees like 20% or 25%, I think they told me, which is ridiculous. So I wonder if this was a pre-existing problem with this bike, and I've just come across it because I'm deep diving my other issues. But anyway, so the good news is I figured out what my problem was, and I think I know what the problem with the imbalanced compression is, and I don't think it has anything to do with operating temperatures. I think the two cylinders, while they did actually, I removed the KACRs from both so that you don't get that little bump to release the pressure, and they both were spot on exactly the same compression with a hand crank. I was getting about 62 psi exactly on both. Anyway, thought I would share this. I hope the fuck I can get this back together in time to be riding as soon as the weather gets better. Anyway, all right. Cheers.